So there's quite a lot of Nintendo news about at the moment, and I assume there's going to be in the next few coming weeks as to the when the Switch actually comes out. There's quite a lot of Nintendo news going on at the moment, but there's some certain things that have interested me, and I'm going to talk about the various things and then voice my opinion on them, as I'm given to understand that's what everyone on YouTube is doing now. So why not? The first thing it hasn't annoyed me. It's made me a bit. I'll tell you what the news is. Basically, Wii U production has now ended globally, and I know that's just a headline. It's not really a news story because everyone knew that this was coming. But it's sort of disappointing because I haven't even got a Wii U yet. So that basically means for those of us that do want to get a Wii U and don't really want to spend the money, the worry is going to be that it's going to be like all the Nintendo products of recent years, is that collectors are going to snap them all up and there's not going to be any really for the rest of us who only want one. But basically this whole story's come along. A lot of people thought it was only ending production in Japan, but it has now been sourced from Nintendo's own website in Japan and translated properly, and it turns out that the production has actually ended worldwide. So Nintendo is no longer making the not the Nintendo Switch, the Nintendo Wii U. I mean, take it as you find it. I dare say there's going to be a few on store shelves for a while yet. But if I go into my local game store at the moment, they haven't actually got any new ones in that store. I can only buy a what do you call it, pre-owned Wii, and to be honest, that's more for a pre-owned Wii. I mean, I think it was for the 32 gig model. I think they were only £180 something, and I thought that's too much. Bearing in mind that wasn't in a box either. That was just the console and the cables. So that's an annoying thing. Although personally there's some light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully I'll be able to talk about that at some point in the future if it all pans out. So the Switch is just a few weeks away now, and I'm going to refer to my notes on this one so I get the names right. The General Manager of Nintendo's Entertainment Planning and Development Division is a man called Shinya Takahashi. And the Entertainment Planning and Development's Deputy General Manager, a man named Yoshiaki what does that say? Koizumi. I'm probably butchering these names because obviously they're... I'm not very good at reading. It's basically it. So they've, in an interview, and I don't know who this interview was, this has come from 3 different sources on the internet. Not one of them said who this interview was actually with, but what they've done is they've hinted at the possibility that the Switch... I forget what they call it, the Joy-Cons, are at some point in the future going to be replaceable with other things. Now, what does this mean? Well, what it basically means is that you're probably going to end up with lots of reasonably expensive, given the technology that we know is in the Joy-Cons, reasonably expensive accessories with your Switch. I imagine stuff along the lines of if you ever owned a DS, that Guitar Hero controller and things like that, stuff that used to go in the Game Boy Advance slot on an older DS, that sort of thing. Only instead of going on that, it would slot on the side of your Switch or onto the side of your Joy-Con controller or whatever. But this is probably quite a good thing, especially from a collector's standpoint, because obviously that means there is more stuff to collect. the cost of these things, again, might be a bad thing. And again, it is also only a hint, but the fact that it's been hinted at means that not only will Nintendo probably release stuff, but third-party people might release stuff as well. So even if you think that, yeah, it's a controller and it's got the D-pad and two buttons on the top, whatever, and maybe you think that's not enough buttons, maybe they'll release like an 8-button thing later on, or alternatively, have it so that you could use it as like maybe a Super Nintendo style controller or a GameCube style controller. I don't know, but that could be something for the future. So if you are looking at getting a Switch and you might be worried about the options for playing games, and I imagine Nintendo are looking at that sort of thing, and that's my opinion, is that I think there are going to be different controllers released as time goes on that slot into the sides of the screen and whatever, like on the Joy-Cons. So that's something that's been hinted at this week, and for me it seems like a really good idea. I don't know if you'd be able to get an N64 version though. That's the trouble, because I don't know, with that joystick in the middle, I don't know how that would work when you can only put the things on the sides. But hey ho, unless they were to maybe release a separate Joy-Con style cradle that had the joystick already built in. I don't know. I don't know how they would achieve that. So the other Nintendo news is that they've just announced that the NES Classic Edition has sold 1.5 million units. There is nobody that ever thought that it wouldn't. This was apparently confirmed by Nintendo president, and here comes another name, Tatsumi Kimishima. And there's nobody that thought it wouldn't. But the interesting thing is they have addressed the issue of the shortages, and I'll try and sort of say the reason it takes so long to replenish the stock apparently is because some of the parts require time to procure. Now, I don't know about that, because they're not. Either Nintendo is producing the parts themselves, in which case, what's the fucking problem? Or they're made of stock parts from a third-party company that is being paid to produce them. So, in which case, what's the fucking problem? I don't know. I don't really think that's an excuse. I do think that it's maybe deliberate. What they've done is create these shortages in order to hype up demand. Because I honestly can't see what the issue is. Bearing in mind that it's working with 30-year-old games now. Obviously they can't just put like a £5 Raspberry Pi in a box. They wouldn't be allowed to do that, but I don't see what the problem is, especially when it's very obvious, if you own one and you've actually used one, that it is an emulation system. It's very obvious that that's the way. If you've tried to play Punch-Out, you'll know how sort of laggy and buggy that particular game is. Most of the rest of them play fine, but Punch-Out is atrocious. Don't even try playing it on an NES Classic, you'll get nowhere. So, is there any other Nintendo news? Well, there's a couple more things. Staying with the NES Classic, it has now been hacked. Now, it was about 2-3 weeks ago maybe that somebody hacked it. There was a program release that could hack the NES Classic, and people were putting somewhere between the region of 60 to 90 games on it. The program has now been further built on, and now you can get the entire NES library on it. Now, I was toying with the idea of doing a video of this and doing it myself, but then I decided, partly due to the fact that it is... Well, there's two reasons, basically. Due to the fact that it is so laggy with stuff like Punch-Out, I decided I'm probably not going to do that, and because it just didn't seem worth it. And the other reason is that I already have a Raspberry Pi emulation machine that plays the entire library of NES games with no lag whatsoever. So for me personally, I've got no interest in doing it because I already have a machine that does it, that I can plug into HDMI and whatever else. So I don't see the effort in me going to the bother of downloading the program, putting all the ROMs on, setting it all up correctly, and doing it just to make a video, especially when there's hundreds and hundreds of other people that have already done the same thing. So that's why I won't be doing a video. But if you are interested in doing that, there are plenty of people that have already done it, and it's perfectly straightforward. And this thing of bricking the console seems to have been a bit of a non-event. So it might happen, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. Other Nintendo news, the last piece of Nintendo news, Project Giant Robot has been cancelled. Now, this is a game that some people were looking forward to, other people were just sort of interested. Now, this is something that Shigeru Miyamoto was working on with his own project team, and it was supposed to appear on the Wii U. And it was supposed to appear on the Wii U, I think, about a year ago, if I'm not mistaken. Now, it's gone through delay, and then suddenly Nintendo announced that basically Zelda Breath of the Wild was going to be the last first-party title on the Wii U. So, where does this leave Project Giant Robot? Well, it leaves it in sort of limbo. Now, depending on how far along they were in the development cycle, I'm guessing to put something on the Switch is probably going to take a lot more work than it's going to be worth, especially for a game that not many people really know about or care about. So it seems to be that the way it's going to go is that it's just going to be cancelled, and that is annoying because everyone likes Nintendo games. If you're buying a Nintendo, you're basically buying it to play Nintendo games, because let's face it, everything else made by third parties you can probably get on you can probably get on another console. So the fact that there's a Nintendo IP that's now not to be, or is going to be so far delayed that the people looking forward to it are actually just not going to be interested anymore, is irritating, but it has happened before. You know, what can you do? Now, I think that's pretty much it for the Nintendo news. So I'll wrap this video up, and what I will probably... Now, I could go on and do... because there's some stuff that applies to other things, but I'll probably do them as separate videos just to keep interest. So I'll do that, and I will see you in the next video that I'm gonna talk about some PS4 stuff and some Final Fantasy stuff, and if there's time... something special, so do stay tuned to that, but this will probably be in 4 little parts, so you can just click on the one that seems the most interesting to you.